These are the three types of simple permanent tissues, right? So what are the three types? Parenchyma, Collenchyma, and Sclerenchyma, right? Three types of simple permanent tissues. Let me draw. Parenchyma. Cells in a parenchyma tissue, they are spherical. They are spherical, right? And those cells have a uniform cell wall. Uniform cell wall. Actually, these cells are spherical. So in a cross section, they look like circles. Spherical cells, cross section ekadi circles. You can understand that, right? Then tennis ball is spherical, right? Tennis ball is spherical. Nathang dorangadiyak gannako spherical. Kapuwahama round වෙන්නේ, right? So these cells are spherical, and in a cross section, they look like circles. They look like circles. And because these are plant cells, they have a cell wall. They have a cell wall. And that cell wall is made up with cellulose. Cellulose වලින් හැදිච්ච cell wall එකක් තියෙනවා. And it has a confirmed thickness. That means uniform thickness throughout the cell wall. මුළු cell wall එක පුරාවටම thickness එක එක සමානයි. Thickness එක වෙනස් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. හරි? එතකොට and because this is a permanent tissue, there is a central vacuole at the middle. ඔයා plant cell එකක් අඳිනකොට මතක නම් 10 වසරේ අර plant cell එක මැද තඩියට vacuole කියලා එකක් අඳිනවනේ. Vacuole එකක් තියෙනවා මැද. So here we have the large central vacuole. Because of the large central vacuole, nucleus is pushed towards periphery. Large central vacuole එක නිසා nucleus එක පැත්තට තල්ලු වෙලා තියෙනවා. Nucleus එක පැත්තට තල්ලු වෙලා තියෙනවා. So here we have the nucleus, and this is the central vacuole. Central vacuole එක nucleus එක. And because these are spherical cells, spheres cannot move closer to each other without gaps, right? Without gaps. There are gaps in between the cells. Cells අතර gaps තියෙනවා. round නේ ළමයි. round එකට set කරන්න බෑ gaps නැති වෙන්නේ. මැද gaps තියෙනවා. And we call those as intercellular spaces. So there are intercellular spaces are prominently seen in this tissue. මේ tissue වර්ගය ඇතුලේ intercellular spaces prominently පේන්න තියෙනවා. Right. Then collenchyma. When it comes to collenchyma cells are elongated cells, and they look like polygons in a cross section, right? Elongated cells and look like polygons in a cross section. And the cell wall is not uniform. Cell wall is made up with cellulose, but it's not uniform. It's not uniform. There is an extra thickening of cellulose at the corners, right? There's an extra thickening of cellulose at the corners. So here you can see this is the cell wall, and it's not uniform like this. මේ වගේ uniform නෑ. You can see the extra thickening of cellulose at the corners. So this is the cell wall. This is the cell wall, right? And made up with cellulose, but it's not uniform like this. මේ වගේ uniform නෑ. There's an extra thickening of cellulose at the corners. And this is a permanent tissue. So we have permanent cells, and in permanent cells, there's a central vacuole and peripheral nucleus and all other cellular organelles as usual. And in a cross section, they look like polygons. Cross section එකකදී polygons වගේ පේන elongated cells. Polygons නිසා මේක හොඳට ලං වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ලං වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒතර ලං වෙන්න පුළුවන් නිසා intercellular spaces prominently පේන්න නැහැ. නැත්තෙම නැහැ. තියෙනවා ඈ. intercellular spaces ටිකක් තියෙන්න පුළුවන්. තියෙන්නත් පුළුවන්, නොතිබෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. කොහොම වුණත් එච්චර නැහැ. තියෙන්නත් පුළුවන්, නොතිබෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. මේකේ තියෙනවා බරටම ඈ. මේකේ නැහැ. එච්චර නැහැ. Right? Okay. So that's about Collenchyma. Parenchyma, Collenchyma. And finally, Sclerenchyma. Sclerenchyma cells don't have an exact shape. So මේවට නිකන් exact shape එකක් කියන්නත් බෑ. මෙන්න මේ වගේ කියලා. එක එක shape එකේ තියෙනවා. And these are dead cells. These are dead cells. මැරිච්ච cells. This cell is living. Nucleus, vacuole, and all other cellular organelles are there. This is also a living cell. Again, the vacuole, nucleus, mitochondria, chloroplast, Golgi complex, all other cellular organelles are there. But this is a dead cell. There are no cellular organelles inside. It's a dead cell, no nucleus, no vacuole, no mitochondria. It's a dead cell. And there's an empty core inside. මැද තියෙන්නේ හිලක් ළමයි. මුකුත් නැහැ. හරි? සෙල් එක මැරිලා. dead cell එක මැද මුකුත් නැහැ. මැද තියෙන්නේ හිලක්. And the next thing you should understand, there's a very thick cell wall. Thick cell wall එකක් තියෙනවා. And that is there's a very thick cell wall, and it is made up with cellulose and lignin. Here, the cell wall is made up with cellulose. Cell wall is made up with cellulose. Here also, cell wall is made up with cellulose. But when it comes to Sclerenchyma, cell wall is made up with cellulose and lignin. And lignin is something impermeable for water. So lignin do not allow water to come in. So as a result of that, these cells become dead. Cell එක මැරිලා dead වෙලා. හේතුව මොකද්ද? lignin වතුරට එන්න දෙන්නේ නැහැ. වතුරට එන්න දෙන්නේ නැසිනා cell එක මැරෙනවා. Right? Cell එක මැරෙනවා. So it's a dead cell, and there are no intercellular spaces. මේකේ intercellular spaces ඇත්තේම නැත. මේකේ intercellular spaces අම්බානට තියෙනවා, සෑහෙන තියෙනවා. මේකේ intercellular spaces නැති තරම් එකක් දෙකක් තියෙන්න පුළුවන්, චුට්ටක් තියෙන්න පුළුවන්. මේකේ intercellular spaces ඇත්තෙම නැහැ. living cells, a dead cell. මේකේ කියනවා primary cell wall එක විතරයි තියෙන්නේ, and it is made up with cellulose and a uniform cell wall. And here also only the primary cell wall made up with cellulose, but it is not uniform. There's an extra thickening at the corners. Here, this cell has a secondary cell wall. That means a cell wall is made up with cellulose and lignin, and it's a very thick cell wall and impermeable for water. Impermeable for water. Right. Yes, so those are the features of these simple permanent tissues.